Welcome to Mediumship Moments with psychic medium Kym Durham. Join her as she shares her personal journey with mediumship, connects with your loved ones, and discusses topics dealing with spirituality.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mediumship Moments. I'm your host, second-gen psychic medium Kym Durham. I am just thrilled to have this podcast. We put in an extra one for the month of December because when this airs, it's actually going to be 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. So I thought, what better way to start this podcast than to read 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. You know, it was one of my family traditions, and I'd like to share it with you now. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were all nestled snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mama in her kerchief, and I in my cap, had just settled down for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from the bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new-fallen snow gave luster of midday to objects below, when what did my wondering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer. With a little old driver, so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. More rapid than eagles, his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen. To the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now dash away, dash away, dash away all. As the dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they met with an obstacle, mount to the sky. So up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with the sleigh of full toys and St. Nicholas too. And then in a twinkling I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew on my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur, his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, now they twinkled, his dimples how merry. His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard of his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump and right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head, and soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and he filled all the stockings and then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside off his nose and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to the sleigh. To his team he gave a whistle, and away they all flew like down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim as he drove out of sight, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night." So I hope that brings some memories for you. I remember I was blessed to have a fireplace in our home growing up. And there was nothing like a warm hearth. You know, we got our showers, got our baths, got our footy pajamas on. And we would sit there and my mom, Joan, would read this to us. And there was just such excitement and glee when we were anticipating St. Nick. You know, Santa Claus would be coming that evening to the next morning. Of course, we put the cookies and the milk out. You know, we put a carrot, and we were so very excited and anticipating his arrival. Now, there are all kinds of traditions that, this time of year that we grow up with. And, it was interesting because I put it out in a poll on Mediumship Moments on Instagram. Thank you, everybody, for following me for that and participating in that. But it was amazing the different things I saw, right? So we all know that the holiday traditions, they're so important that they cultivate this deep sense of belonging and this connection and cultural identity to our families and our communities. And not only do they create memories, but they kind of strengthen that bond and that link, that sense of stability across generations while we are passing them down and continue to practice them over time. In essence, really, they're a link to our past, and that's how we can connect with those loved ones still on the physical plane and the spiritual plane as well. So I just want to thank everybody because it was really great how you started to share your Christmas traditions. And that's what I'd like to share with you all now. Now, there was a lot. It's interesting. There was one family tradition, which I completely forgot about, but it's the Advent because I had a fireplace. A lot of people put up about the Yule log. And I myself now in my other residence have done that, put it on, and it reconnects to my past and the warmth that I grew up next to a hearth, and the stockings above it. But it was really interesting. A lot of you talked about, got to put the Yule log on the television and the music playing. And like I said, I've done that as well. Now, Lindsay, you reached out and talked about burning of a bayberry candle, and a lot of people had talked about that as well. Now, for me, I remember we had to go and get the special green candle. And when I was younger, and I wasn't quite sure what that special green candle was, but I knew we had to have it, and we had to have it for Christmas Eve. And so we'd go to the local stores, and my mom would either pick it up at Macy's, or there was a place on Glassboro Road, I'm going old school here, called the Pinecone Shop. And it was this lovely place that just had candles and different types of figurines. And even though my mom wasn't a tchotchke fan, so to speak, you all know what a tchotchke is, right? I would say a Hummel figure that some of our grandmothers collected, right? That's a tchotchke. But the Pinecone Shop, especially at Christmas, just went above and beyond. And that's where my mom would, if she couldn't find it, at the local department store, would go to get it. And so my mom being 100% Irish, that's a tradition from Ireland. So the thought is you get the bayberry candle, and back in Ireland, they would actually burn it in the window. I know. With thatched roofs. Can you imagine how fireproof that was? But my mom would burn it on Christmas Eve, and then she would put it in the sink. And truly, I have to thank you, Lindsay, because when you mentioned that and putting it in the sink, I'm like, oh my God, my mom would do that too. So the thought of that in Ireland was the cleansing of, it was symbolic to welcome strangers and to remember those far away from home. And there's a belief, and I know this because it happened to me. I actually broke down in bitter cold when I was younger driving, and I went into somebody's home on Christmas Eve as I waited for AAA or my dad. I'm not quite sure who came to save me. And they were so thrilled that I came to their home because their belief was that if a stranger comes to your home on Christmas Eve, you're going to be blessed throughout the coming year. So I'm so glad. I hope that I bless somebody's home by doing that. But nonetheless, putting that candle, smelling that bayberry, that special green candle, was a way of remembering those. And, we're such a transient society. I'm sure I reside in New Jersey, but I've got family in North Carolina and friends in Boston, Candace and Nicole and Chloe, you send my love out to you. And I've got friends on the West Coast as well and in Arizona. So to me, if you get a bayberry candle and you burn it, it's a way of signifying those loved ones, family, friends, chosen family, that you remember them, those that are far from home. They also had something it did about mince pies. And they love that as well. And it's funny. I get mince pies for my better half because she seems to like that. I'm not a fan. No judgment there. But again, that comes from the Irish side of enjoying some mulled wine, which if you've ever had it, it's strong. I'll just say that. It'll put a pep in your step. Of course, the little ones get hot cocoa. But that's symbolic of what would happen in Ireland and how we take that tradition from my great-grandparents, and that's continued here in my family. And yes, my daughter still refers, Mom, do we have the green candle? Do we have the bayberry? Did you get it? Where is it? And I love that she remembers that. I really, really do. Another tradition that was shared was Christina. And two things Christina brought up. Now, it's called the 7 fishes, right? Christmas Eve, you have 7 fish, and it's good luck and a blessing throughout the year, right? My father, we would have maybe 4.5 fishes. I know he would always get shrimp, and I remember, there would be other like calamar and things like that. But Christina, I thank you for sharing, the 7 fishes. And I have friends that own restaurants locally and other places. And in Italy, it's not so much a thing in northern Italy. It seems to be something more cultural to the southern Italy, and that it was brought over. But, 7 fishes, and you're really lucky. I just say this, if you get to dine at a table with the whole 7 fishes, the works, because it is quite remarkable. If you've ever been to an Italian home, oh my God, oh Maron. Did I say that? I did. I put a little gravy in my accent there. I'm unleashing a little Lucetta, my grandmother. But 7 fishes, boy, it is just amazing that they have that. And one of the things I remember was my grandmother, speaking of Lucetta, would make pizzelles. And she'd have the iron. And remember, it was like this gray wrapped kind of looking cord. And you thought, well, maybe this is the last Christmas it's going to work. Lucetta had that pizzelle maker out every year. And I'm not a fan of Anisette, but she'd make special vanilla ones for me. And they were just amazing. And to this day, that's a tradition that I do. Do I make pizzelles? Not so much, but I do buy them and I do enjoy them. And when I do that, I think Lucetta. Lucetta can tell me, otherwise known as Lucy, my grandmother, my dad's mom. So thank you, Christina, for sharing that memory, because it was, like I said, reading all of your remarks about holiday traditions and sharing, it was really a walk down memory lane for me. It truly, truly was really a great little stroll through memory lane. Now, Danielle, you brought up on my Mediumship Moments Instagram poll that your grandma would set up the manger and would fold a tissue to cover up baby Jesus. And then Danielle would get to uncover baby Jesus on Christmas Day. Now, I think that's lovely. I really do. My father would love to put a manger out. That was his thing. My father back in the day was actually an altar boy who could speak Latin and would do Latin masses. So he was thrilled when I took Latin in high school, beamed from ear to ear. So he got a manger and would put that in the house. Now, in honor of my dad, I would put a manger up too. Just the things you remember. But when Aubrey was little, she would steal baby Jesus out of the manger. And it became this game about, Aubrey, put baby Jesus back, would you please? So I don't know if anybody else's children are, absconding with the nativity scene. But again, Danielle, I think that's a beautiful memory that you got to uncover baby Jesus. Another kind of tradition that I do, because I didn't have a fireplace in our home when Aubrey was young, I would get a golden key. And it was a Santa key, very special, very heavy. And it had a red ribbon, and I would hang it on the doorknob. And that was a special key that Santa could come in to our home and fill our stockings with joy and put presents under the Christmas tree. And to this day, I still put the Santa key on. And when my daughter walks up to the door, she gets the biggest kick out of it. And someday I'll pass it on to her for her to use with her family. So let's talk about some other traditions here. Midnight Mass. Now, I've done several different types of midnight masses. And what do I mean? I go to different faiths. As you know, I believe that whatever God you recognize or higher spirit, and you pray and devote yourself to that, if that brings you joy and brings you peace, who am I to judge? So it's always interesting when I've had the opportunity to go to different faiths churches, especially on Christmas Eve. But the midnight mass, for those that are Catholic, is just huge. And I have a dear friend, Father John, who teases that's the 1 year every heathen shows up at church to make up for missing Mass throughout the year. Just his words, not mine. I would go to Philadelphia, and there's an amazing church that had to be rebuilt. It was the church. It's on 2nd. And I'm having a bit of a TIA right now, but it was 2nd and Race, and they'd have a full brass ensemble with choir. It was just amazing. It was breathtaking, and as you know, I love music, and it was just amazing to go there and partake in it. Just so much tradition with that. So ironically, the last year we went, they then had to close that church down for structural defects because the roof needed major repairs, and they've since taken care of it. But it was out of commission for almost 2 years. If the name comes to me, I'll let you know. But that's another tradition of Ireland to celebrate Christmas and the music and the merriment that happens, during the festive season. It's not just for Ireland. Now, this is something that I found interesting. I have a lot of, and I'm very blessed to have a large following in Ireland and England. And one thing I had actually seen on a Netflix series that I'm watching, Bad Sisters. Anyone see it? Okay, just a shout out to that. But there's a tradition in Ireland that you go to the iconic 40-foot rock located just south of Dublin, if you're in that area. And each Christmas morning, you'll find hundreds of, they use the term brave souls, leaping into the chilly Irish Sea while donning nothing but their swimsuits and a smile. It's kind of like the equivalent of the polar bear plunge, but it is a tradition, and it is just something that show had shown and was pretty remarkable. And I thought, if it brings you joy, do it. But I thought that pretty fabulous that everybody would do that. It's like, okay, we've got to go off to the swim. And you're like, what swim? A pool? Nope. Into the Irish Ocean. Now, as we move our way through Europe, I want to talk about Norway. Hello to my friends in Norway. There are traditions there that it's really interesting. They, in specifically Norwegian tradition, they hide their brooms on the day before Christmas to protect themselves of evil spirits and witches. Mm-hmm. Yep. Take the brooms away and they can't use them, I guess is the thought behind that. But that's one thing that I saw. And then one that seems to be picking up here is the Christmas goat. Has anybody seen that? The screaming goat? Yeah. That's a Scandinavian tradition where a straw goat wrapped in a red ribbon would be used for Christmas decorations. That's another fabulous thing that people would do. And then there's a thing, for all of my Italian friends out there, I know I'm probably not saying this right. Zamponeri? It's an Italian tradition where bagpipe players, this is in Italy, dressed as shepherds would go from house to house playing Christmas carols. And I thought that unusual because I thought, that was more of a Scottish, Ireland type of thing that would happen. But How cool is that? And I believe that's northern Italy where that would happen. Now, as we swing around, let's talk about some of my clients in Australia. Love you all. Oceania, Fiji. Yes, I've got some there. And let's talk about some of the traditions that you all have that I just find. And New Zealand, can't forget New Zealand, highly spiritual place. I still remember a mediumship moment that I had with a client from New Zealand, and it's something I'll carry with me. It was just remarkable. But let's talk about things that would happen in Oceania area. Let's talk about surfing Santa. Can you picture Santa? Donna, you know what I'm saying? Santa's got his fur-lined swim shorts on. He's donning his cap. He's got this white beard, it's like snow. And there he is, hanging 10 on a surfboard. I kind of love that, actually. So, since Christmas falls in summer in Australia, Santa's frequently shown riding the waves on a surfboard. So I think that's pretty cool. Just something fun. There's also something that they do that actually made me think of it's called prawn runs. And it's a tradition for families to purchase fresh prawns, kind of like shrimp, to enjoy during Christmas festivities, right? So kind of like the 7 fishes, but only one. That's the way I'd put it. And then the really cool thing is that they have street parties. Who doesn't love a good block party, right? It's a good block party. Again, the warm weather in December, they'll have the community coming together for like a big party, right? So there's music playing. I'm sure there's some kind of adult beverages, dancing, food and festivities. But they're known for putting on quite a bash with those street parties. So let's talk about another family tradition. And I just found out something. In fact, it happened last evening. I was out at a local establishment enjoying a bite to eat. And the bartender there, Michelle, shout out to Michelle and Sheila at G-Bar, had shared with me that her family owned Gaudio Brothers. Does anybody remember that out there? Now, this is distinctly commonplace to New Jersey, southern New Jersey. I think were they in Merchantville? And then they moved to Cherry Hill, Route 70. Anyway, it was this amazing Christmas wonderland. They had 30 different trees, 100 different lights, garland. I mean, it was pretty much the Amazon of Christmas. And then they had a special room off the side that was animatronics and Christmas trees. And here we are, all dressed up, hat and gloves and everything. And it was just really a treat to go to Gaudio Brothers in Cherry Hill and to just look through Christmas of the eyes of a 5-year-old and just the wonderment and the joy. And I can just remember my 3 brothers and I walking through and loved going. The people were wonderful there. I can only imagine how exhausted they were during the holiday season, but truly going to Gaudio Brothers was a big deal. Also, the Dickens Village in Philadelphia. Anybody go? Strawbridge and Clothiers? I think that's what it was. It's now at the Atwater Kent Museum. But that would have the animatronics. And this was a cool thing. Now, am I aging myself? Probably. But, this was like pre-Disney having animatronics where all of these figures would move, talk to you, and tell a story. And it was Dickens Village. But those 2 things I remember quite a bit and would love to do with my family. Now, another tradition that a lot of you talked about, would be making Christmas cookies. And I have to tell you how many angels on the other side come forward with recipes about this. It's truly remarkable. They're well-kept secrets. Like Nonna would not tell you how much rogat she would put in because she wanted to feel special, and her cookies always turned out better than Aunt Loretta's, let's say. But Christmas cookies, we would put the apron on and, get the pots out and the mixer, and you had to have the butter and the sugar and the flour. And it was like a production line. And we put the Christmas music on. And sometimes if we did it up at my Aunt Peggy's house, my Uncle Frank would make eggnog. Oh, fabulous eggnog, which he'd bring to parties or just let us partake in. And depending on your age was how spiked it was with whiskey. Mm-hmm. Yep. Love that, love that, love that. So that was a huge tradition. But I have to tell you that when we would do the cookies, everybody's variation of the recipes were just amazing. Like the thumbprints with the chocolate, what are they called? The Hershey. I miss doing that, large in part because I, have celiac and I can't. But remember fondly making and enjoying cookies with my family. In fact, like I had said, on a mediumship moment recently, I had a nonna come through, a mother come through, her daughter was sitting with me, and she talked about, you know what they show me? They show me the little kind of like Tupperware box, that it would lift up, and sometimes it'd be green or gray. And she showed me index cards. And then she showed me a yellow piece of paper folded up in fourths with like a rip on the corner. And she talked about the recipe of her pork chops. And her daughter just sat there and said, "Oh my God, 3 days ago, I was cleaning out my mom's stuff, came across this, had no idea it was in this box tucked away. And there I found my mom's beloved pork chop recipe." So that was a family tradition her mom would make for the new year over the holidays. And it's something her daughter cherishes and will continue to do and pass on to her daughter. Now, I want to give fair warning right now for any parents out there listening with wee little ones in the car. I'm going to talk about Santa, wink, wink. So if you're listening now with children by your side or in the car, it would be a good time to hit pause or go to another channel before, I continue. So I'm just going to we're just going to pretend that we hear, the Jeopardy theme? Da, 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 da. Okay. All righty. So I want to share with "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" when I started that on the podcast. One of the reasons I did, obviously, I talked about, being a tradition for me and my family. But I have to tell you and share a memory. I remember I couldn't have been any more than 5.5. And I heard footprint. I heard the elves on the roof. I heard the elves on the roof. And I came bounding down, and it was early in the morning, crack of dawn. And I went out downstairs, and we had a living room that was, downstairs. And we had an area that was like the entertainment center. And there was a bar and there was a stage. Yes, karaoke back in its day before karaoke. Anyway, looking out the windows, I saw footprints and a sled tracks. I was so excited. Santa came, he came. Look. Do you see the footprints in the sleigh? And I knew it. I heard them. So what had happened is that we had a shed in the back where my parents would hide Christmas presents. And my parents used the sled to put the presents on and bring them down to the living room through the window. And so when I saw that, I interpreted it as Santa being there. And looking back, it brought great joy to my parents that I was so enthralled and so excited as I saw the Santa tracks they left behind. Pretty neat, pretty neat memory. So let me start with this, or let me end with this. I like to drive around, starting my own traditions. I will drive around with my better half and look at all the Christmas lights and just take that in. And it's a simple little joy that we do. We bring a little hot cocoa in the car and we drive around and we just enjoy that. And it's our little time. And it's something we started, over 20 years ago. A cheap date night. There you go. But it was fun nonetheless. So I just want to take a moment to share with you, as we talked about traditions, whatever you do that brings you joy, that you pass along to your father to son, mother to son, son to mother to daughter, grandparents passing along, and you keep that tradition going, whether it's a dish you cook, a candle you burn, a place that you go to shop. It's a way of honoring your angels and that they know you do that. And I know how difficult this season can be for everyone, but they are with you and they're thrilled that you keep those traditions alive. So I'm going to leave you with my own personal mediumship moment. As you know, my mom was a psychic medium, and a damn good one at that. And so we'd have presents under the tree wrapped in wrapping paper. And my mother would give a twist on Christmas. She would touch the box. And I mean, by touching, not pick it up. Just put 2 fingers in the box. And she would proceed to tell us what was in the box. Sometimes she wouldn't even touch the box. And she would describe what's in the box. And that's called remote viewing. It's a highly skilled level of psychic ability. It's something that is used in when I work on murder cases and missing persons. I can be at the location or see something there without physically being there. So mom would tell us what was in the box. And, it was fun. We got a big kick out of it. We really, really did. And then the one time, my brothers thought they'd outsmart her. Brian and Greg, I'm talking about you. And they decided to take my mom's gift that they had gotten and wrap it in tinfoil and then put it in the box and wrap it again in a box. Yep. How did mom know that the ashtray that they picked up at the library for Christmas shopping, and you're like, an ashtray? Back in the day, Joan would once in a while, she'd put incense in them. How did my mom know? And how could my mom describe exactly what it looked like? Pretty cool. So that's my mediumship moment. Those are my traditions. I appreciate you all sharing yours. And as always, I leave you this Christmas Eve with light, love, and blessings. And I encourage you to keep chatting with your angels because they can hear you.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time for another episode of Mediumship Moments. If you enjoyed this episode of Kym's podcast, check her out on Instagram and TikTok at Kym Durham Medium.